I was in high school when my family was hosting Christmas. My grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins were all coming over to our house. The house was decorated all over, and some of my family members had been staying at our house for a couple days. There were already a few presents wrapped and under the tree, but most of the present wrapping was done on Christmas Eve. I had gotten my first job earlier that year, so I was excited about the gifts I had gotten for everyone. Some I had already put under the tree, but there were a couple that were hidden in my room so that nobody would see them. We wrapped presents on Christmas Eve and hung out late into the night, and everyone got to bed pretty late. I went up in my room and played some video games for a while because I wasn't quite sleepy yet. I ended up staying up pretty late, though it was 2 a.m. and I was about to go to sleep when I realized that I hadn't put my last few presents under the tree. They were already wrapped, but I had them hidden in my bedroom closet. I went and retrieved them and then left my bedroom to place them under the Christmas tree. When I left my bedroom, I saw that the house was all dark and quiet aside from a little nightlight on the wall that we had up there. I walked down the stairs and then into the living room. It was a little bit brighter there due to the lights on the Christmas tree. I added my presents to the many that were already laid out under the tree. As I turned to go back up the stairs, I heard a noise. Suddenly, it was so quiet that the noise startled me quite a bit. It was coming from the back of the house. I walked over to see what was going on. As I did, I thought I heard rattling from the back door leading to the patio. It seemed like somebody was going to come through the back door into the house. I entered the kitchen, which is where the back door led, and turned on the light. As I did, I saw the door opening. I jumped back and heard a noise as if now somebody was running away outside. After I gathered myself, I realized that nobody was there. Whoever had been there left. I walked over and looked outside. I didn't see anybody, so I shut the door and locked it. The door must have been left unlocked or something. Our back door was rarely used by us, so that must have been the case. Maybe one of my cousins or somebody used it and never thought to lock it up at night. Either way, I was terrified by what I had just witnessed. I went around making sure all the other doors in the house were locked. After doing so, I was confident that whoever tried to get into the house was now gone. I went back and turned off all the lights, then went upstairs to go to bed. I got into my bedroom again and turned off the lights. When I got into bed, I happened to pull back the curtain and glance out my window. My window overlooked the side yard of our house. What I saw was a man walking from our front yard going into the back. My heart started racing. This had to be the same person that tried to break in. I ran out of my room and back downstairs. As I did, I turned on every light that I could. I got back down to the kitchen and turned the light on again, hoping this would deter the man. It seemed to work. I heard sounds as if a man was walking away through the snow near the back door area. Once again, I looked out the front window and just barely saw the guy walking away down the street. Then, I left the lights on and went back upstairs again. This time I looked out my window and didn't see the man. I figured he was gone for good now, and finally, I was able to fall asleep. The next morning was Christmas, and when I woke up I could already hear family downstairs talking. When I went downstairs, my mother asked me if I had left the lights on. I told her yes and then explained why. A few of us went outside and found out that the lock on our back door had somehow been broken. It wasn't working at all, so even when it looked like the door was locked from the inside, it wasn't really locked from the outside. That's how the guy had opened up the door. What scares me is that when I went back downstairs that night, I didn't know that the guy could have just walked right in if he wanted, and I wouldn't be able to stop him. I'm grateful that turning on the lights did, and I wonder what would have happened if I didn't. It was the year I was 6 years old, a time when Christmas was filled with magic and excitement. I believed in Santa Claus, the jolly old man who brought presents to good children on Christmas Eve. My parents, caught up in the last-minute rush of Christmas shopping, dropped me off at the mall Santa Grotto, promising to be back in just 15 minutes. I joined the line of excited kids, my heart pounding with anticipation. When my turn came, I sat on Santa's lap, my eyes wide with wonder. I told Santa about my most desired gift, a new toy car. Santa listened patiently, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Then, something strange happened. Santa asked for my home address, claiming he needed it to deliver my gift. Without hesitation, I gave him my address. I was just 6 and still very much a believer in the magic of Christmas. After I got off Santa's lap, I rejoined my parents and continued shopping. But a nagging feeling of unease stayed with me. Santa's request for my address seemed odd, and I couldn't shake off the sense that something was wrong. That Christmas Eve, I woke up in the middle of the night to a room filled with darkness and silence. The snow was piling up outside my window, and my thirst urged me to get a glass of water from the kitchen. As I tiptoed towards the living room, I noticed a tall figure standing near the Christmas tree. It was a man dressed in a long red robe and a Santa hat. He was holding a large sack of presents and had a dark, menacing look on his face. I froze in shock, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched as the man descended the stairs and entered my 4-year-old sister's room. A moment later, he emerged with my sister in his arms, carrying her out of the house and into the biting cold. Panic surged through me, and I screamed at the top of my lungs. The man turned, his eyes glowing with an unnatural intensity. He glared at me for a moment before disappearing into the darkness, leaving my sister behind in the snow. I rushed to my sister's side, wrapping her in my arms to shield her from the cold. I told her to stay quiet and not to tell our parents. Then, I led her back to her room, trying to block out the terrifying events that had just transpired. I spent the rest of the night in a state of fear and confusion, unable to shake off the image of the man in the Santa hat. When morning finally arrived, I told my parents about the kidnapping, but they dismissed it as a nightmare. The police were eventually involved, but they found no trace of my sister. The man in the Santa hat remained a mystery, his identity lost in the depths of the winter night. As the years passed, I never forgot the events of that Christmas Eve. The fear, the helplessness, and the loss of my sister, it was a trauma that left an indelible mark on my soul. Christmas, once a time of joy and anticipation, became a reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the world. Every Christmas, our family would have the same routine. Our little boy, still full of wonder, would eagerly await Santa's arrival. We'd leave out cookies and milk before tucking him in, and in the morning, he'd wake up to a mountain of presents under the tree. But this year, Christmas took an unexpectedly frightening turn. As always, we carefully placed the plate of cookies and milk by the fireplace. After our son was snuggled in bed, I finished arranging the gifts under the tree. I even had a little nibble on a cookie, feeling a bit guilty for indulging before everyone else. Finally, I joined my wife in bed, anticipating the morning's excitement. Christmas morning was insane. But in the middle of all the fun, something totally freaked me out. The plate of cookies we left for Santa was completely empty. At first, I dismissed it, thinking I might have eaten more than I remembered. But the growing worry in my wife's eyes reflected my own. Our son's innocent words confirmed our worst fears. He had seen Santa eat the cookies. He woke up in the middle of the night and saw a figure hunched over the plate, its features hidden in the darkness. Someone had been in our house. Fear made me look everywhere like crazy. I rushed around the rooms upstairs, but couldn't find anything. My steps made the old basement stairs creak as I went down into the dark, dusty room that hadn't been touched in ages. There, I saw it, a bunch of boxes piled up in a weird way, like a kid's fort. And then, I heard it, rough, loud breathing. A dark shape moved behind some old cardboard boxes. It was a man, all messy and skinny, with eyes that looked scary and wild. I couldn't move, I was so scared. He mumbled things I couldn't make sense of, begging for help and talking about stuff I didn't understand. Then he suddenly jumped at me, moving like he was about to fall over. I turned and ran up the stairs as fast as I could, hearing his heavy steps getting closer behind me. As I reached the top, I saw that my wife and son were safe, their faces pale with fear as I slammed the door shut and barricaded it with everything I could find. A guy was yelling and banging on something, making scary noises that filled the air like a scary song. I got really scared and shaky, so I called 911. I felt bad because it was Christmas morning and calling the cops seemed not right, but I had to keep my family safe. Waiting for the cops took forever. The guy outside kept begging for help, but he also seemed like he was talking to himself in a weird way. It was clear he had some problems and might be dangerous. When the police got there, they caught the guy really fast. Turns out, he'd been secretly living in our basement for a while, eating our food and using our stuff without us knowing. When I found out, I felt super scared and grossed out. We tried to make Christmas nice, but what happened made everything feel not right. Instead of being happy, we were always worried and felt like our space wasn't safe anymore. Even small things like a snack missing or weird noises at night felt really scary. I can't forget how that guy looked at me and how scary it was when he was chasing me in the dark. Christmas won't ever feel the same. The fun of Santa coming is gone, replaced by a reminder of how bad things can happen in places you don't expect. Now, whenever something goes missing, it makes me feel scared, like a memory of that bad Christmas that changed how we see our home and the world.